What if I told you the secret to a weed-free garden has nothing to do with herbicides, mulch, or hours pulling on your hands and knees? Some of the most beautiful plants in American horticulture happen to be living weed barriers. Once they fill in, they choke out everything beneath them year after year. Today, I am giving you 9 ground covers that will end weeding in your beds for good. Stay with me, because number 6 has been growing on Scandinavian rooftops for 1,000 years. Subscribe to Evergreen Garden now. Number 1 is creeping thyme. If you have a sunny spot where you have given up on weeding, this is the plant that will take it back for you. And once it fills in, you can actually walk on it without doing any damage at all. Creeping thyme is a low-growing evergreen perennial in the mint family, reaching only 2 to 4 inches tall and spreading by stem rooting and seed. It produces tiny pink, purple, or white flowers in early summer that bees and butterflies cover by the thousands. The leaves carry the same aromatic essential oils as culinary thyme, which is why deer and rabbits leave it alone and why crushing it underfoot releases a clean, herbal scent. Thyme has been cultivated across the Mediterranean for at least 3,000 years. Egyptian embalmers used thyme oil for preservation. Ancient Greeks burned it as incense in temples and added it to bath water for courage and strength. Roman soldiers carried thyme to ward off fatigue, and medieval European monks grew it in monastery gardens for both medicine and meditation. The practice of using low-growing thyme as a living ground cover and walkway plant came from cottage gardens in England and arrived in colonial American gardens in the 1700s. Modern research has confirmed thymol and carvacrol in thyme leaves, 2 of the most powerful antimicrobial compounds in any garden plant. As a ground cover, creeping thyme suppresses weeds through a dense root mat that crowds out germinating weed seeds and through allelopathic compounds that inhibit competing plants in the surrounding soil. Creeping thyme grows in USDA zones 4 through 9. Plant it in full sun in lean, well-drained soil. The worse, the better. Rich soil makes it leggy. Space plants about a foot apart and water until established. After the first season, it requires almost no care. It tolerates drought, heat, foot traffic, and rocky soil that nothing else will touch. Use it between flagstones, on slopes, in driveway cracks, around mailbox posts, or as a complete lawn replacement in dry, sunny areas. This is a plant that does the work of mulch, herbicide, and ornamental display all in one. And once established, it returns bigger every year. American gardeners in California, Arizona, Texas, and the Mountain West have used creeping thyme as a lawn replacement for decades, and the practice is finally catching on across the rest of the country. Number 2 is sweet woodruff. If your problem is the dim, shady corners under trees where nothing wants to grow except a never-ending crop of weeds, this is the plant that will take that problem off your hands forever. Sweet woodruff, or Gallium odoratum, is a shade-loving perennial that grows 6 to 10 inches tall with whorls of bright green, star-shaped leaves arranged in tidy rosettes around upright stems. In late spring, it produces clouds of small, sweetly fragrant white flowers. The leaves themselves carry the unmistakable scent of fresh-cut hay when crushed or dried, a scent that intensifies and lingers as the foliage cures. Sweet woodruff has been used in European households since at least the early Middle Ages. Medieval German families harvested it each May for the traditional drink Maibowle, a wine punch flavored with the dried herb that became one of the centerpieces of spring celebrations across Germany and Austria. In England, dried sweet woodruff was layered in linen closets for fragrance and as a moth deterrent, a practice carried into colonial American homes in the 18th century. Catholic churches across Central Europe scattered fresh woodruff on the floor during religious festivals because of its perfumed sweetness. Modern research has confirmed coumarin compounds in sweet woodruff that give it the hay-like scent and that show mild sedative properties. As a ground cover, sweet woodruff suppresses weeds by forming a dense, interlocking mat in deep shade where almost nothing else will grow. It thrives where weed seeds also struggle, but the plant itself simply outpaces every contender once it is established. Sweet woodruff grows in USDA zones 4 through 8, planted in partial to deep shade in moist, humus-rich soil. Space the small starts about 12 inches apart. The plant spreads slowly the first year and then takes off, doubling and redoubling each season until it forms a continuous green carpet. It is well behaved and easy to remove from areas where you do not want it, unlike many aggressive shade ground covers. This is the plant that turns the worst, darkest corner of your yard into the most beautiful piece of garden you own. The traditional Maibole drink is still made every May in German-American communities across the Midwest and Texas Hill Country. And gardeners who grow sweet woodruff often harvest a small bunch each spring to keep the tradition alive. Number 3 is bugleweed, also called ajuga. And before I go further, ground cover number 6 on this list has covered Scandinavian roofs for 1,000 years and is now growing on top of New York City office towers. Stay with me for that. Bugleweed is a fast-spreading, low-growing perennial that forms a dense, glossy mat just 3 to 6 inches tall. Its leaves come in striking varieties, from deep bronze to chocolate purple to silvery green, and in late spring, it sends up 6-inch spikes of brilliant blue, purple, or white flowers that cover the foliage in a haze of color for several weeks. Pollinators are drawn to it heavily during peak bloom, and the visual impact during May and June is among the strongest of any ground cover available. Bugleweed is native to Europe and the British Isles, where it has been used in herbal medicine since the Middle Ages. The botanical name ajuga comes from the Latin meaning without yolk, a reference to the plant's traditional use in calming nervous tension. Early English herbalists, including the influential John Gerard in the late 1500s, prescribed bugleweed for healing wounds and reducing inflammation. The plant arrived in colonial American gardens in the 1700s and quickly spread as a reliable ground cover under trees and along shaded paths. Modern research has identified iridoid glycosides and anti-inflammatory compounds in bugleweed that support its long medicinal use. As a ground cover, it suppresses weeds aggressively through a thick rhizomatous root system and through stolons that run along the soil surface and root at every node. A few starter plants will become a continuous carpet within 2 seasons. Bugleweed grows in USDA zones 3 through 9, one of the widest ranges of any ground cover on this list. Plant it in partial shade or sun in average, moist, well-drained soil. Space starts 12 to 18 inches apart. It tolerates poor soil, drought once established, and most foot traffic. It works particularly well on slopes, under deciduous trees, in difficult shade, and in transitional zones between lawn and bed. This is one of the most reliable, low-care ground covers a homeowner can plant, and the spring flower display alone is worth the planting. Number 4 is creeping phlox. If you have a slope, a rock garden, or any spot where you want a riot of spring color and a permanent end to weeds, this is the plant that delivers both at once. Creeping phlox is a native North American perennial that grows 3 to 6 inches tall and spreads to form dense, evergreen mats up to 2 feet wide per plant. In early to mid-spring, it explodes into a solid sheet of pink, lavender, white, blue, or red flowers that cover the entire foliage so completely you cannot see the leaves underneath. The bloom lasts 3 to 4 weeks, and after the flowers fade, the small, needle-like evergreen leaves continue to suppress weeds and provide color and texture year-round. Creeping phlox grows wild on the rocky slopes and dry meadows of the Appalachian Mountains and other regions across the eastern United States, where it has been part of the native flora for thousands of years. Cherokee and other Appalachian peoples used various phlox species in poultices for skin conditions and brewed weak teas from the leaves. The plant entered colonial American horticulture in the early 1700s and has been a fixture of American spring gardens ever since, particularly in the rock gardens, cottage gardens, and slope plantings of New England, the Mid-Atlantic, and the Midwest. Modern research has confirmed flavonoids and other antioxidant compounds in phlox species, and ongoing studies are investigating phlox pollination ecology because the flowers support a wide range of native bees, butterflies, and hummingbirds. As a ground cover, creeping phlox suppresses weeds through dense, persistent foliage and a tight root system that holds soil on slopes and crowds out competition. Creeping phlox grows in USDA zones 3 through 9, Plant in full sun in well-drained, average to lean soil. Space about 12 to 18 inches apart, and the plants will close ranks within 2 seasons. It tolerates rocky, sandy, and dry conditions exceptionally well, which is why it is one of the most reliable plants for slopes, retaining walls, and stone outcroppings. This is the ground cover that turns a difficult slope into the most beautiful spot in your spring garden. And once it fills in, weeding in that area becomes a thing of the past for as long as you live in the house. Number 5 is pachysandra. This is the most reliable, deep shade ground cover available in America, and the spot under your large shade trees, where nothing has ever grown, is exactly where this plant comes alive. Pachysandra terminalis grows about 6 to 10 inches tall, with whorls of glossy, dark green, leathery leaves arranged in clean rosettes around upright stems. It produces small white flower spikes in early spring that are not particularly showy, but carry a subtle, sweet fragrance. The real beauty of pachysandra is the foliage. It stays evergreen through the harshest American winters, holding its rich green color even under snow, and it forms a continuous, deep, weed-proof carpet that eliminates virtually every competing plant beneath the canopy. Pachysandra is native to Japan and China, where it has been grown ornamentally for centuries. It was introduced to American horticulture in the early 1900s by plant collectors returning from Asian expeditions, and it spread rapidly through American gardens during the post-war housing boom of the 1940s and 1950s, as suburban homeowners sought a low-care solution for the shaded foundation plantings around their new homes. By the 1970s, it had become one of the most planted ground covers in the United States, particularly in the Northeast and Midwest, where deep tree shade had defeated nearly every other option. Modern research has identified steroidal alkaloids in pachysandra with potential medicinal applications, and the plant is being studied for cardiovascular and neurological compounds. As a ground cover, pachysandra suppresses weeds through a combination of dense rhizomatous roots, evergreen leaf cover that blocks sunlight from reaching weed seeds, and slight allelopathic effects on neighboring plants. Pachysandra grows in USDA zones 4 through 8. Plant in deep to partial shade in moist, slightly acidic, humus-rich soil. Space starts about 6 to 12 inches apart. Closer for faster fill-in. Water during the first season to establish, after which it requires almost no maintenance. It is one of the few plants that genuinely thrives where lawn grass refuses to grow. This is the plant that turns the bare, dusty soil under your maples and oaks into a permanent green carpet. And once you plant it, you can leave that part of your yard alone for the rest of your life. Number 6 is sedum, also called stonecrop, and this is the one I promised you. If there is a single ground cover with a story that connects ancient survival, modern architecture, and almost every climate in America, this is it. Sedum is a huge family of low-growing, drought-tolerant succulents with thick, fleshy leaves and star-shaped flowers in yellow, pink, white, or red. Some varieties stay only an inch or two tall and creep along the ground in a tight, weed-suppressing mat. Others form upright clumps reaching 1 to 2 feet for the back of a border. The leaves come in jade green, blue-gray, burgundy, gold, and variegated forms, giving the gardener a wide range of color and texture from a single plant family. The story of sedum begins on the rooftops of Scandinavia and Northern Europe, where for over 1,000 years, rural families covered their houses with sod and turf to insulate against winter cold. Sedum and other low-growing native plants colonized those roofs naturally, holding the soil in place, surviving on minimal water, and providing a living layer of insulation. The same plants appeared in the rooftop gardens of medieval European monasteries. In the late 20th century, modern green roof technology rediscovered sedum and made it the foundation plant of green building across America. Today, the rooftops of New York City office towers, Chicago corporate headquarters, and countless American schools and museums are carpeted with sedum varieties developed specifically for low-water, low-maintenance rooftop installations. Modern research has confirmed flavonoids, alkaloids, and antioxidant compounds in many sedum species. As a ground cover, sedum suppresses weeds through a dense, succulent canopy that holds moisture in its leaves and roots. deprives weed seeds of light, and thrives in the lean, dry, sun-baked conditions where most other plants fail. Where weeds depend on disturbed, fertile soil, sedum prefers the opposite. Sedum grows in USDA zones 3 through 9, depending on the variety. Planted in full sun in lean, gritty, well-drained soil. Almost no soil amendment is needed. Water until established, then reduce sharply. Sedum thrives on neglect. It is ideal for slopes, rock gardens, between pavers, on green roofs, in containers, and in any sunny spot where you want a beautiful, low-care, weed-free planting. This is the plant that does more with less than nearly anything else in the garden. American homeowners increasingly use sedum to replace small lawn areas, fill out hell strips between sidewalk and street, and cover the difficult dry strips along driveways and foundations where heat reflects all day long. Number 7 is lamb's ear. Most American gardeners know this plant for its silvery, fuzzy leaves that look and feel like the soft ear of a young lamb. Most do not know what a powerful weed suppressor it becomes once it fills in. Lamb's ear, or Stachys byzantina, is a low-growing perennial that forms dense rosettes of silver-white, woolly leaves about 8 to 10 inches across. The leaves are covered in fine hairs that give the plant its distinctive texture and pale color. In early summer, it sends up tall spikes covered in small pink-purple flowers that bees and pollinators love, though many gardeners cut the spikes down to keep the focus on the silvery foliage. The plant spreads slowly and steadily by stolons and self-seeding to form continuous, weed-free patches. Lamb's ear is native to Turkey, Armenia, and Iran, where it has been grown for centuries for both ornamental and medicinal use. The leaves were used historically as bandages on the battlefield. The thick wool of the leaf naturally absorbs blood and contains compounds that helped clean wounds, and accounts from soldiers in the American Civil War and both World Wars describe lamb's ear leaves used as field dressings when traditional bandages ran short. The plant arrived in American gardens in the early 1800s and became a staple of cottage and herb gardens for its visual softness and historical resonance. Modern research has confirmed antimicrobial and astringent compounds in lamb's ear that support its battlefield reputation. As a ground cover, lamb's ear suppresses weeds through dense leaf coverage that blocks sunlight from reaching the soil. An extensive, shallow root system that competes effectively for water and nutrients in lean soil, and the silvery leaf cover that reflects sunlight and keeps the surrounding soil cool and dry, conditions weed seeds dislike. Lamb's ear grows in USDA zones 4 through 8. Plant in full sun in lean, well-drained soil. It dislikes wet feet and humid conditions, which can cause the woolly leaves to mat and rot. Space starts about 12 inches apart. It is exceptionally drought-tolerant once established and provides a soft, silver-toned contrast to the greens and bright colors of surrounding plants. This is one of the most touchable, kid-friendly sensory plants in the garden, and it doubles as a permanent weed barrier in dry, sunny spots. Number 8 is Vinca minor, also known as common periwinkle or creeping myrtle. Of every shade-tolerant ground cover in American horticulture, this is the one that has carpeted more shaded yards, slopes, and woodland edges than any other for over 200 years. Vinca minor is an evergreen, trailing perennial that grows 3 to 6 inches tall with glossy, dark green leaves and produces clear blue-violet flowers in spring, with sporadic blooms repeating through the summer and into fall. The trailing stems root wherever they touch soil, so a single plant becomes a small colony within 2 seasons and a large carpet within 4 or 5. The flowers, while not large, carry a clean, classic beauty that has made the periwinkle a beloved part of American gardens for generations. Vinca minor is native to Europe, where it has been grown since at least Roman times. Roman writer Pliny the Elder described it growing in walled gardens. Medieval European monasteries used vinca extensively in herbal medicine, particularly for vascular complaints and memory support. The Latin name vinca means to bind, a reference to the plant's stems being twisted into wreaths used in medieval funeral rites. The plant arrived in colonial America in the 1700s and was widely planted around homesteads, churchyards, and family cemeteries across the eastern United States, where many of those original plantings still survive today. Modern research has confirmed alkaloids in vinca that have led to important pharmaceutical developments. Compounds derived from vinca species have produced cancer-fighting drugs that are part of standard chemotherapy protocols, and Alzheimer's research has investigated other vinca compounds for memory support. As a ground cover, vinca minor suppresses weeds through dense evergreen foliage, vigorous spreading stems, and a tight root mat that excludes competition once established. Vinca minor grows in USDA zones 4 through 9. Plant in partial to deep shade in average, well-drained soil. Space about 12 inches apart for fast fill and water until established. After the first year, it requires almost no care. It tolerates drought, poor soil, and the dry shade under mature trees that defeats most plants. This is the workhorse ground cover for the American shade garden, and once planted, it will outlive the gardener who put it in. Across New England, you can still find vinca patches blooming every spring on the grounds of homes built in the 1800s, the descendants of plants set into the soil by gardeners more than 2 centuries ago. Number 9 is bigroot geranium, or Geranium macrorhizum, and this is the most underused, most reliable, most weed-proof shade ground cover American gardeners almost never plant. That is about to change, because once you see what it does in the 3rd year of growing, you will understand why every garden designer who works with shade plants treats this one as a secret weapon. Bigroot geranium is a clumping, semi-evergreen perennial growing 12 to 15 inches tall with deeply lobed aromatic leaves that turn bronze and red in fall and hold their color through winter in milder regions. In late spring and early summer, it produces clouds of pink, magenta, or white flowers that pollinators visit heavily for several weeks. The leaves carry a clean, almost spicy fragrance when brushed, which is why deer, rabbits, voles, and most other pests leave it alone. The thick, knobby rhizomes, from which it gets its common name, spread slowly but persistently underground, forming a dense, durable carpet. Bigroot geranium is native to the mountains of southern Europe, where it has been used since the Middle Ages. The aromatic essential oils in the leaves and stems have been distilled for perfumery and herbal medicine since at least the 16th century, and the plant became a fixture of Bulgarian and Macedonian herbal traditions for both culinary and medicinal use. Bigroot geranium reached American gardens through European immigrant plantings in the late 1800s and gained mainstream popularity through the work of American garden designers working in the new perennial style of the 1990s and 2000s. Modern research has confirmed essential oils with antimicrobial and astringent properties in bigroot geranium leaves. As a ground cover, it suppresses weeds through a combination of dense leaf cover, aromatic oils that deter many insect pests, and germinating weed seeds, and a thick rhizome system that holds the soil tight and crowds out competition. Bigroot geranium grows in USDA zones 4 through 8. Plant in partial shade to part sun in average, well-drained soil. It tolerates drought, deep shade, and dry conditions under trees better than nearly any other flowering perennial. Spaced 12 to 18 inches apart for full coverage in 2 seasons. This is the plant the next generation of American gardeners will discover and wonder why their parents never grew it. And that is your 9 ground covers that have quietly ended weeding in beds and borders across America, and that have done it without herbicides, mulch refreshes every spring, or hours of work on your knees. What makes these plants work is the way they match what weeds are trying to do, but they do it better. Weeds occupy bare soil. These ground covers do too, only they get there first, fill in completely, and stay. Weeds reach for sunlight. These plants block that sunlight at the soil surface where it matters most. Weeds compete for water and nutrients. These plants have already locked in those resources with deep, established root systems that new weeds cannot break through. You do not need all 9. Pick the ones that match the conditions you are trying to fix. Sun and dry, plant creeping thyme, sedum, or lamb's ear. Deep shade, plant pachysandra, sweet woodruff, or bigroot geranium. Slopes, choose creeping phlox or bugleweed. Difficult dry shade under mature trees, plant vinca minor. Plant in spring or early fall. Water through the first season, and let the plants do the rest. By the 2nd year, weeds in those areas become rare. By the 3rd year, they all but stop appearing. If this gave you an idea for a corner of your garden you have stopped fighting with, share this video with a friend who is tired of weeding. And if you are not yet subscribed to Evergreen Garden, click that button now and ring the notification bell. Every week, we bring you the plant knowledge that makes gardening simpler, more beautiful, and more rewarding than you ever thought possible. I will see you in the next video.